The stars had never looked so threatening to Admiral Thexvar as they did that morning. His massive warship, the Dominion's Fist, cut through space like a blade through silk. Behind him followed 200 vessels of the Valerian Empire, each one bristling with weapons that could crack planets in half. Thexvar stood on his command bridge, his 6 arms crossed behind his back. His purple skin gleamed under the ship's bright lights. He had conquered 47 star systems in his lifetime. Today would make it 48. "Admiral," his tactical officer called out, "we are approaching the target system. The locals call." "It's all? Any resistance?" Thexvar asked. "Minimal, sir. Their ships are small, primitive. We count maybe 50 vessels defending the third planet." Thexvar laughed, a sound like grinding metal. 50 ships against 200? This will be over quickly. On Earth, Captain Hyun-woo sat in his command chair aboard the EDF ship Harmony. The bridge was quiet except for the soft hum of computers. Through the main screen, he could see the alien fleet approaching. They looked impressive, he had to admit. "Sir," Boram said from her communications station, "we're getting a transmission from the lead alien ship." "Put it through," Hyun-woo replied calmly. The screen flickered and showed Admiral Thexvar. The alien looked angry, which seemed to be his natural expression. "Primitive humans," Thexvar began, his voice booming through the speakers. "I am Admiral Thexvar of the Valerian Empire. Your planet is now under our control. Surrender immediately, or we will destroy your cities one by one." Hyun-woo leaned back in his chair. He was a young man, barely 30, with calm, dark eyes and steady hands. "Hello, Admiral. I'm Captain Hyun-woo of the Earth Defense Force. Thank you for visiting our system." Thexvar blinked all 4 of his eyes. "Thank you." "Did you not hear me, human? We are here to conquer your world." "Oh, I heard you," Hyun-woo said with a small smile. "But I think you might want to check your historical databases first." "Historical databases?" Thexvar's voice rose. "What nonsense is this?" Dong-min, the tactical officer, looked up from his station. "Sir, their weapons are charging." "I see that," Hyun-woo replied. He pressed a button on his armrest. "All ships, maintain current positions. Do not power weapons." Boram looked worried. "Captain, they have us outnumbered 4-1. "Numbers aren't everything, Boram," Hyun-woo said quietly. On the Dominion's Fist, Thexvar was growing frustrated. "Human Captain, you have 10 seconds to order your ships to stand down, or we will open fire." "Admiral," Hyun-woo said, his voice still calm, "before you do something you'll regret, let me ask you a question. Have you ever heard of the Forgotten War?" Thexvar paused. Something about that phrase made his skin crawl, though he didn't know why. "What war? Speak plainly, human." "The war your people fought 3,000 years ago. The one where an entire species helped save your homeworld from the Devourers." The bridge of the Dominion's Fist went silent. Thexvar felt a chill run down his spine. The Devourers are myth, children's stories. "Are they?" Hyun-woo asked. "Then why do your oldest songs speak of guardians from beyond the rim who came when darkness fell? Why do your most ancient temples have symbols that match the markings? On our ships?" Thexvar looked around his bridge. His crew was staring at him with wide eyes. The Devourers were indeed part of their oldest legends, but no one believed they were real. "Sir," his science officer called out, her voice shaky, "I'm detecting something strange from the human ships." "What kind of strange?" "Their energy signatures. They match patterns in our most ancient artifacts, but that's impossible. These humans are primitive." Hyun-woo's voice came through the speakers again. "Admiral, I'm going to show you something. Please don't be alarmed." On the Harmony, Hyun-woo nodded to Dong-min. "Activate the heritage protocols." Dong-min's fingers moved across his console. Around Earth, the 50 human ships began to change. Their simple metal hulls started to glow with soft blue light. The light grew brighter and brighter until the ships looked like stars themselves. On every Valerian ship, alarms started going off. "Admiral!" the science officer shouted. "The energy readings are off the charts. These readings, they're identical to the Guardian artifacts in our museums." Thexvar stumbled backward. The Guardian artifacts were the most sacred relics of his people. They were said to have been left by the mysterious beings who saved their world long ago. But the artifacts were dead, powerless. They had been for centuries. "This is not possible," Thexvar whispered. "I'm afraid it is," Hyunwoo said, gently. "Admiral, your people have forgotten much, but the universe remembers. The stars remember." Around the solar system, space itself seemed to shimmer. Ancient beacons, hidden in asteroids and dead moons, began to wake up. They had been sleeping for thousands of years, waiting for the right moment. The beacons sent out signals in languages that the Valerian computers recognized but couldn't quite translate. The messages were old, older than their civilization, older than their myths. "Sir," the communications officer on the Dominion's Fist said with a trembling voice, "we're receiving signals from across the system. The computer says they're authentication codes. Guardian authentication codes." Thexvar sank into his command chair. "Show me the signals." On the main screen, lines of ancient text appeared. Even though it was written in a script that was thousands of years old, every Valerian could read it. It was taught in their schools as the sacred language. The message was simple. "The Guardians have returned. Welcome home, children of Valeria." Hyunwoo's face appeared on the screen again. "Admiral, we never left. We've been here the whole time, watching, waiting. Your people needed time to grow, to learn, to become who you were meant to be. But you're human. You're from this small planet. We're from many places, Admiral. We always have been. Earth is just one of our homes." Thexvar looked around his bridge. His crew was staring at the screens in wonder and fear. Everything they thought they knew about the universe was crumbling. "What do you want from us?" Thexvar asked. "The same thing we've always wanted," Hyunwoo replied. "For you to be safe, for you to grow, for you to learn that strength isn't about how many worlds you can conquer." "Then why didn't you reveal yourselves before?" Hyunwoo was quiet for a moment. "Because you weren't ready. You needed to make your own mistakes, learn your own lessons. But now," he gestured to the fleet surrounding him. "Now you're here, threatening a world instead of protecting it. Maybe it's time you remembered what your ancestors learned." On his ship, Dongmin looked up from his station. "Captain, I'm reading massive power buildups from their weapons." Hyunwoo nodded. "I see it. Maintain position." "Sir, they could destroy us." "Could they?" Hyunwoo asked with a slight smile. The question hung in the air as both fleets faced each other in the cold darkness of space. The Valerians had come expecting an easy conquest. Instead, they had found something that challenged everything they believed about themselves and their place in the universe. Admiral Thexvar stared at the glowing human ships and felt very small for the first time in his life. Dr. Sunhee pushed her glasses up her nose as she walked through the underground archives beneath Seoul. The corridors were lined with artifacts that most people had never seen, strange metals that didn't appear on any periodic table, crystals that hummed with their own inner light, tablets covered in writing that seemed to shift when no one was looking. "Dr. Sunhee," her assistant called out, "the Galactic Council is ready for your presentation." Sunhee nodded and gathered her materials. She had spent 20 years studying these artifacts, trying to understand their origin. Now, with the Valerian fleet hovering above Earth, everything was about to make sense. The quantum communication array activated with a soft blue glow. Suddenly, Sunhee was standing in what appeared to be a vast amphitheater. Around her sat representatives from dozens of alien species. She could see the insect-like Zephyrians, the crystalline Altarians, and many others she had only read about in classified files. At the center sat Chancellor Vextar of the Galactic Council, a being that looked like a walking tree made of silver. "Metal. Dr. Sunhee of Earth," the Chancellor said, his voice echoing strangely. "You have requested an emergency session. Speak." Sunhee took a deep breath. "Honored representatives, I am here to show you something that will change how we all see the galaxy." She activated her holographic display. Images of artifacts began floating in the air around her. The alien representatives leaned forward with interest. "These artifacts were found on 43 different worlds across the galaxy," Sunhee began. They're all made from the same materials, using the same technology. They all bear the same symbol. The symbol appeared in the air above them, a simple circle with radiating lines, like a stylized sun. The interesting thing, Sun He continued, is that we found these artifacts on worlds that have no connection to each other. Some are separated by thousands of light years. Some come from civilizations that died out millions of years ago. Representative from the bird-like Aquilans spoke up. What does this have to do with your planet's current situation? Sun He smiled. Everything. Because we found the same symbol on Earth. Not just one or two artifacts, but thousands. Hidden in caves, buried under cities, carved into mountain faces. And unlike the artifacts found elsewhere, the ones on Earth are still active. She gestured, and new images appeared. These showed the symbol glowing with blue light, just like the human ships currently facing the Valerian fleet. The dating is what's most interesting, Sun He said. The artifacts on other worlds are ancient. Some are 50,000 years old, some are 100,000. But they all follow a pattern. They appear during times of crisis, help local civilizations grow and learn, then disappear. Chancellor Vextar's metal branches rustled. You're suggesting these artifacts came from the same source? I'm suggesting more than that, Sun He replied. I'm suggesting that source is humanity. The amphitheater erupted in noise. Representatives shouted in dozens of languages. Several stood up from their seats. Impossible! Roared a Valerian representative. Humans are a young species. You've barely reached your own moon. Sun He waited for the noise to die down. That's what we wanted you to think. She activated another display. This one showed a timeline stretching back hundreds of thousands of years. Humans didn't evolve on Earth. We came there as refugees, survivors of a war that nearly destroyed the galaxy. What war? Asked the Aquilan representative. Before Sun He could answer, footsteps echoed through the amphitheater. An elderly man walked into the circle of light. He was small and thin, with gray hair and kind eyes. He looked like someone's grandfather. Hello, old friends, the man said quietly. Chancellor Vextar's metal form went rigid. Who are you? How did you access this chamber? The old man smiled. My name is Tae-ho, and I've been waiting a very long time to have this conversation. Something about his voice made the entire assembly fall silent. There was an authority in it that seemed older than the stars themselves. I know this is confusing, Tae-ho said, walking slowly around the circle. You remember bits and pieces, stories your grandparents told, ancient songs about beings who came from far away to help. Myths about guardians who fought the darkness. He stopped in front of the Valerian representative. Your people still sing the song of the distant sun, don't you? About the light that came when all seemed lost. The Valerian's purple skin had gone pale. How do you know our sacred songs? Because we taught them to you, Tae-ho said gently. Just like we taught the crystalline equations to the Altarians when their sun was dying. Just like we showed the Aquilans how to heal the poison in their atmosphere. He turned to address the entire assembly. We didn't conquer. We didn't demand tribute or worship. We helped, we taught, and then we left. Because that's what teachers do. They help their students grow, then step back to let them find their own way. But why? Chancellor Vextar asked. Why hide? Why pretend to be primitive? Tae-ho's expression grew sad. Because of what we had to do to save you all. The amphitheater grew deadly quiet. The devourers, Tae-ho continued, were real. They consumed entire star systems, turning matter itself into energy for their hunger. They couldn't be reasoned with, couldn't be stopped by conventional means. Images began appearing in the air around him. Vast ships that looked like metal, tumors, planets reduced to gray dust, stars flickering and dying. We fought them for 1,000 years. We lost billions. Entire human colonies were wiped out. But we learned something about them that no one else knew. What? Sun He asked. Though she suspected she already knew the answer, they fed on negative emotions, fear, hatred, despair. The more afraid their victims were, the stronger the devourers became. And the galaxy was becoming very afraid. Tae-ho gestured, and new images appeared. These showed space itself seeming to crack and tear. In the end, we had to do something terrible. We rewrote the laws of physics in a section of space larger than most empires. We created a prison that existed outside normal reality, and we locked the Devourers inside. What was the cost? Asked the Aquilan representative. We had to lock ourselves in with them, Tejo said quietly. Not our bodies, but our memories, our history, our connection to the rest of the galaxy. We made the universe forget we existed, so the Devourers couldn't use our reputation to spread fear. The amphitheater was silent for a long moment. So we went home, Tejo continued. To Earth, the one world we had kept hidden from the war, and we waited. We watched you all grow and learn and become strong in your own ways. We sent small groups to help when needed, but always in secret, always disguised. The artifacts, Sun-Hee said with sudden understanding. They were left by human teachers. Teaching tools, Tejo confirmed. Knowledge stored in forms each species could understand. We helped you all reach for the stars, hoping that when you met each other, you would choose cooperation over conquest. Chancellor. Vextar's branches were shaking. How long have you been watching us? Always, Tejo said. We've never really left. Humans live among all your species, have for generations. We've been your teachers, your friends, your protectors. You just didn't know it. But why reveal yourselves now? Asked the Valerian representative. Tejo looked up at the stars visible through the amphitheater's crystal dome. Because the prison is weakening, and because it's time for the galaxy to remember what it learned the first time. What did we learn? Chancellor Vextar asked. That some things are worth protecting, no matter the cost, Tejo replied, and that we're stronger together than apart. He turned to address the entire assembly one more time. The Valerian fleet came to Earth expecting to find a weak, primitive world. Instead, they found something that challenged everything they believed. That's happening all across the galaxy now. The old stories are waking up. The ancient beacons are calling. And humanity is ready to stop hiding. What happens now? Sun-Hee asked. Tejo smiled, and for a moment he didn't look like an old librarian anymore. He looked like someone who had seen the birth and death of civilizations, someone who had carried the weight of the galaxy's future for longer than most species had existed. Now, he said, we all remember together. Lieutenant Jae-Sung checked his equipment one more time as the transport ship approached Kepler 442b. The planet hung in space like a brown marble, its surface scarred by ancient wounds that were visible even from orbit. This was where the final battle had been fought, where humanity had made their last stand against the Devourers. Lieutenant, called Dr. Chen from the Altarian research team, are you certain the surface is safe? Jae-Sung nodded. The radiation cleared centuries ago. The only danger now is what we might find down there. The joint expedition included representatives from 6 different species. After Tejo's revelation to the Galactic Council, everyone wanted to see the proof for themselves. They wanted to touch the history they had forgotten. As their shuttle descended through the thin atmosphere, the scale of the ancient battlefield became clear. Massive craters dotted the landscape, each one kilometers wide. Strange metal structures rose from the ground like the bones of giant creatures, and everywhere there was the blue glow of dormant technology. My God, whispered Captain Nari from the shuttle's pilot seat. How many ships are down there? Jae-Sung looked out the window and tried to count. It was impossible. There were thousands of wrecks scattered across the continent-sized battlefield. But these weren't like any ships in the current galactic databases. They were massive, some of them the size of small cities. The energy readings are incredible, said Dr. Chen, his crystalline form shimmering with excitement. These ships are still generating power after all this time. They landed near what looked like the largest wreck. As they stepped out of the shuttle, Jae-Sung felt a strange sensation, like the ground itself was humming beneath his feet. Stay close together, he ordered. We don't know what kind of automated defenses might still be active. The team approached the massive ship. Its hull was made of a metal that seemed to shift color, depending on how the light hit it. Strange symbols were carved deep into its surface, symbols that looked familiar to every member of the team, even though they came from different worlds. These markings, said Commander Veltar of the Zephyrian Empire. They're in our oldest texts, but we thought they were just decorative. Jae-sung ran his hand along one of the symbols. The moment his skin touched the metal, the entire ship began to glow. The team stepped back in alarm as the hull became transparent, revealing the massive interior. "Lieutenant!" Dr. Chen called out. "Look at this!" A doorway had opened in the ship's side. It was perfectly sized for humans, but somehow it felt welcoming to all the species present. Jae-sung led them inside. The corridors were vast and filled with soft blue light. As they walked, the walls began displaying images. They saw star charts showing the galaxy as it had been thousands of years ago. They saw species they didn't recognize, and some they did. And they saw the enemy. The Devourers looked like living shadows made of metal and hunger. In the recordings, they moved across space like a plague, consuming everything in their path. Planets, stars, even space itself seemed to wither at their touch. "They're horrible," whispered Nari. "They were worse than horrible," said a new voice. The team spun around to see a figure materializing from the ship's walls. It looked human, but its form was made of the same blue light that powered the ship. "I am the memory core of the battleship Eternal Dawn," the figure said. "I have been waiting for someone to come." "You're an AI?" asked Jae-sung. "I am the stored consciousness of Captain Lee Min-ho, along with the memories of his crew. We chose to remain with the ship after the final battle." The AI gestured, and the walls around them changed. Now they were standing on the bridge of the ship as it had been during the war. They could see human crew members working at their stations, their faces grim with determination. "Show them," Jae-sung said quietly. "Show them what really happened here." The AI nodded, and the images began to move. They watched as the human fleet faced an enemy that seemed endless. Ships the size of moons filled space, their hulls pulsing with dark energy. "We had been fighting for so long," the AI said. "Entire generations had been born and died in this war. We had pushed the Devourers back across half the galaxy, but they kept coming." The battle unfolded around them. Human ships moved like dancers through space, their weapons carving lines of light through the darkness. But for every Devourer ship they destroyed, two more appeared. "We realized that conventional warfare would never be enough," the AI continued. "The Devourers didn't just have ships and weapons. They had something else. They fed on fear itself. The more afraid their enemies became, the stronger the Devourers grew." Commander Veltar's insect-like features twisted with confusion. "How? Do you fight an enemy that grows stronger when you're afraid?" "You don't fight them," the AI replied. "You sacrifice yourself to stop them." The images changed, showing human scientists working frantically on something that hurt to look at directly. It was like they were trying to build a hole in reality itself. "The reality anchor," the AI explained. "Our greatest and most terrible creation. It could lock a section of space outside the normal flow of time and physics. Nothing could escape from it. Nothing could enter it, but activating it required someone to stay inside and maintain it." "The entire human fleet," Jae-sung said with sudden understanding. "Not just the fleet," the AI corrected, "the entire species. We had to erase ourselves from galactic memory so completely that even we would forget. Otherwise, the Devourers could use our reputation, our relationships with other species, to spread fear across the galaxy." The images showed the final moments of the battle. The reality anchor activated, and space itself began to twist and fold. The Devourer fleet was caught in the effect, their ships freezing in time like insects in amber. "But you escaped," Dr. Chen said. "Some of you made it out." "A few ships, yes. We had prepared Earth as a sanctuary, a place where humanity could heal and remember who they were meant to be. But the cost." The AI's form flickered with what might have been sadness. "We had to forget everything. Our history, our achievements, our connections to the galaxy. We became refugees on our own hidden world." Nari stepped closer to the AI. "But you're still here. You remember." "I am an echo," the AI replied. "A shadow of what was. I was designed to wake up when humanity was, ready to remember. When the galaxy was ready to face the truth." "What truth?" asked Commander Veltar. The AI gestured, and the images changed one final time. Now they showed the galaxy as it was today, thousands of species living and growing and reaching for the stars. "That it worked," the AI said simply. "The sacrifice worked." The Devourers are gone. The galaxy grew strong and diverse and beautiful. Humanity kept their promise. They protected you all, even at the cost of their own history. Jae-sung felt tears on his cheeks. Around him, he could see that the other team members were equally affected. Even Commander Veltar's compound eyes were glistening. But now the prison is weakening, Jae-sung said. The AI nodded gravely. The reality anchor was never meant to last forever, and after thousands of years the barriers are starting to crack. Soon the Devourers will be free. What can we do? Dr. Chen asked. What you've already started doing, the AI replied. Remember, learn, work together. The galaxy is stronger now than it was during the First War. You have species we never dreamed of, technologies we never imagined, and this time you won't face the darkness alone. The AI began to fade. The ship's systems are waking up. Others will follow. Humanity's hidden fleets are stirring across the galaxy, but the choice is yours. Will you stand together, or will you let fear divide you? As the AI disappeared, the ship around them hummed to life. Lights came on throughout the massive vessel. In the distance, they could see other ships beginning to glow as well. Jae-sung looked at his mixed crew of humans and aliens. I think we have our answer. Commander Veltar clicked his mandibles in what his species used for a smile. The Zephyrian Empire stands with humanity. As do the Altarians, added Dr. Chen Nari, activated her communicator. This is Captain Nari. To all expedition teams, we're going to need a much bigger shuttle. As they prepared to leave the ancient ship, Jae-sung took one last look around. The walls were displaying new images now, not of the past, but of possible futures. Futures where humans and aliens worked side by side to build something better than either could create alone. The war was coming, but this time, they would be ready. Mi Young had been living on Altair Prime for 30 years. To everyone who knew her, she was just another cultural exchange student who had decided to stay. She worked as a translator, helped mediate disputes between different species, and had even married an Altarian crystal being named Kethvar. No one suspected that she was anything more than what she appeared to be, until the day the Galactic Council called an emergency session. Mi Young stood in her small apartment, looking at the message that had just arrived on her personal communicator. It was written in a code that hadn't been used for 3,000 years. A code that only a few dozen beings in the galaxy would recognize. It's time, the message said simply. Kethvar noticed her standing motionless by the window. His crystalline form chimed softly with concern. Mi Young, is everything all right? She turned to look at her husband. They had been together for 15 years. He knew nothing about her real identity, her real purpose. It had been the hardest part of her mission, loving someone while living a lie. Kethvar, she said quietly, there's something I need to tell you. An hour later, they were walking together toward the Galactic Council chambers. Kethavar's crystal structure was flickering rapidly, a sign of extreme agitation. So you're telling me, he said, that my wife of 15 years is actually an ancient human guardian who has been secretly protecting the galaxy? I know it sounds crazy, Mi Young replied. But it's true. There are others like me scattered across every major world. We've been watching, guiding, preventing disasters that would have torn the galaxy apart. What kind of disasters? Mi Young stopped walking. Do you remember the Zephyrian-Valerian border conflict 8 years ago? The one that almost became a full-scale war? Of course. It was resolved when both sides received anonymous intelligence about a third party trying to manipulate them into fighting. That was us. We discovered the real culprits and made sure the evidence reached the right people. Kethvar's crystal form went dim. The plague on Rigel 4? The one that was mysteriously cured overnight? We had been working on a cure for months. We just made sure it appeared to come from local scientists. They reached the council chambers just as alarms began sounding throughout the station. Mi Young's personal communicator buzzed with an urgent message. What's happening? Kethvar asked. Mi Young's face went pale. Admiral Thexfar's second-in-command has gone rogue. He's taken half the Valerian fleet and is heading for Earth. Inside the council chambers, chaos reigned. Representatives from dozens of species were shouting at each other in a dozen different languages. Chancellor Vextar was trying to maintain order, but it was clear that the recent revelations about humanity had shaken everyone's faith in everything they thought they knew. "Order!" the Chancellor called out. "We must have order!" A new voice cut through the noise. "There will be order." Mi-young stepped into the center of the chamber. As she walked, her appearance began to change. Her simple clothes transformed into a uniform that seemed to be made of starlight itself. The tired expression of a middle-aged translator fell away, replaced by the bearing of someone who had seen civilizations rise and fall. "I am Mi-young of the Earthwatch," she announced. "I have lived among you for 3 decades, protecting you from threats you never knew existed." The chamber fell silent. "Who else?" demanded the Valerian representative. "How many of you are there?" "We are everywhere," Mi-young replied calmly. "We have been your neighbors, your teachers, your friends. We helped create your art, build your cities, raise your children. We have loved you and been loved by you." She gestured, and images began appearing in the air around her. They showed humans living among alien species across the galaxy. A human serving as an advisor to the Aquilan sky cities. Another working as an engineer on Zephyrian hive ships. Dozens of examples of humans who had been hiding in plain sight. "The assassination attempt on Chancellor Vextar 2 years ago," Mi-young continued. "His bodyguard threw herself in front of the weapon and died, saving his life. She was one of us." Chancellor Vextar's metal branches rustled with shock. "Genri was human? She chose to give her life for yours, just as thousands of others have chosen to dedicate their lives to protecting yours." "But why?" asked the Aquilan representative. "Why hide? Why not reveal yourselves and rule us?" Mi-young's expression grew sad. "Because that's not who we are. We learned long ago that true strength isn't about ruling others. It's about protecting them, teaching them, helping them become the best version of themselves." A new alarm sounded, this one more urgent than the first. "The rogue Valerian fleet has reached Earth's solar system," announced the station's AI. "They are demanding humanity's surrender." Mi-young activated her personal communicator. "Captain Jun-ho, are you receiving this?" Loud and clear, Mi-young, came the reply. "The New Dawn is in position." On the main screen, they could see the space around Earth. The 50 ships of the human defense fleet looked tiny compared to the 100 Valerian warships approaching them. Captain Jun-ho stood on the bridge of the New Dawn, watching the enemy fleet advance. He was young for a captain, barely 25, but his eyes held the steady calm of someone who had been trained for this moment his entire life. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "they're charging weapons." "Maintain position," Jun-ho ordered. "Do not return fire." "Sir, they're close enough to destroy us with a single volley." Jun-ho smiled. "Are they?" On the lead Valerian ship, Admiral Korth was feeling confident. He had broken away from Thexvar's main fleet specifically to claim Earth for himself. The humans had made his people look like fools, and he intended to restore Valerian honor. "Fire. On the lead human ship," he ordered. The Valerian weapons launched. Beams of energy that could cut through planetary crusts shot toward the New Dawn. The bridge crew watched in satisfaction as the beams struck their target. Then they watched in confusion as the beams passed completely through the human ship without causing any damage. "What happened?" Korth demanded. I don't know, sir," his weapons officer replied. "Direct hit, but no effect. It's like they're not really there." On the New Dawn, Jun-ho was still smiling. "Activate phase displacement." Around Earth, the human ships began to shimmer. They became translucent, like ghosts made of light and metal. "Phase displacement?" the Valerian science officer said in disbelief. "That's theoretically impossible." Admiral Korth was growing desperate. "All ships target the human vessels. Maximum firepower." 100 Valerian ships opened fire at once. The space around Earth lit up like a festival of deadly lights, but every beam, every missile, every energy bolt passed harmlessly through the human ships. "This is impossible," Korth screamed. Jun-ho's voice came over the communications channel. "Admiral Korth, please stand down. We don't want to hurt you." "You're making fools of us." "No, Admiral. We're trying to teach you the same lesson we learned long ago." "What lesson?" The human ships began to move, but they didn't fly through space like normal vessels. Instead, they seemed to fold space around themselves, appearing and disappearing like thoughts made solid. That there are things more important than winning, Junho replied. The new dawn appeared directly in front of Korth's flagship. Not beside it, not near it, but occupying the exact same space without any collision. Your weapons can't touch us because we choose not to be touched, Junho explained. Your ships can't catch us because we choose not to be caught. We learned to rewrite the rules of physics itself. Then why don't you destroy us? Korth asked, his voice shaking. Because that's not who we are. Slowly, gently, the human ships began to push the Valerian fleet, not with weapons or force, but with something that felt like a giant, invisible hand. One by one, the Valerian ships found themselves being moved to a safe distance from Earth. You came here expecting a war, Junho said. Instead, you found teachers. You came looking for conquest and found protection. The same protection we've been offering the galaxy for thousands of years. Admiral Korth looked around his bridge. His crew was staring at the screens in wonder. Their weapons were useless. Their ships were at the complete mercy of beings who chose to show mercy. What happens now? He asked quietly. Now, Junho replied, you go home. You think about what you've seen. And maybe, just maybe, you help us protect the galaxy instead of trying to conquer it. In the Galactic Council chambers, the representatives watched in stunned silence as the human fleet escorted the Valerians safely out of the solar system. They could have destroyed them all, whispered the Aquilan representative. But they didn't, Mi-Young said. That's the point. That's what we've been trying to teach you for 3,000 years. True strength isn't about what you can destroy, it's about what you choose to protect. Engineer So-Young stood in the ruins of the old Galactic Council chambers, her tablet in hand and a team of workers from 6 different species around her. The grand amphitheater that had hosted debates for over 1,000 years was being torn down, not out of anger or destruction, but to build something better. The foundation needs to be deeper, she told her Zephyrian construction foreman. We're not just building a meeting hall, we're building a symbol. The insect-like being clicked his mandibles in agreement. The resonance chambers you've designed are unlike anything we've seen. Are you certain they will work? So-Young smiled. My grandmother helped design the original reality anchor. Trust me, I know something about making impossible things work. 6 months had passed since the truth about humanity had been revealed to the galaxy. The revelation had shaken some species to their core, while others had embraced it with relief. The Valerians, surprisingly, had been among the first to ask for human teachers to come to their worlds. Admiral Thexvar himself had requested assignment to Earth's orbital defense station. He spent his days learning human philosophy and teaching Valerian military tactics to human officers. The transformation in his thinking had been remarkable to watch. So-Young, called Dr. Chen, approaching with his crystalline form glittering in the afternoon light. The empathic resonators are ready for testing. She followed him to the center of the construction site, where a strange device had been assembled. It looked like a combination of crystal and metal, technology that no single species could have created alone. When 2 species argue, So-Young explained to the gathered workers, it's usually because they don't truly understand each other's perspective. This device doesn't read minds or force agreement. It simply helps beings feel what others feel. She activated the device. Immediately, every person in the area felt a subtle shift. The Zephyrian foreman suddenly understood why the Altarian engineer had been frustrated with the crystal alignments. The Aquilan architect felt the deep space loneliness that drove Valerian expansion. The humans experienced the hive-mind connection that made Zephyrians feel lost when alone. Incredible, whispered Dr. Chen. I can feel all of your emotions, but they don't overwhelm my own. That's the key, So-Young said. Understanding without losing yourself. 3 weeks later, the new council chambers were ready for their first session. Representatives from across the galaxy gathered in the circular hall. Instead of elevated seats that looked down on a central floor, everyone sat at the same level in a gentle spiral that encouraged face-to-face conversation. Admiral Hyun-Woo, now promoted to Grand Admiral of the United Galactic Defense Force, stood to address the assembly. Friends, he began, we gather today not as separate species competing for resources, but as neighbors working toward a common future. Chancellor Vextar, his metal branches adorned with flowers from a dozen worlds, gestured. his agreement. The new council operates not on majority rule or force of arms, but on consensus built through understanding. What about disagreements? Asked Representative Colmar of the Outer Rim Worlds. Surely you don't expect us all to agree on everything. Mi Young, now serving as humanity's official ambassador, stepped forward. Disagreement isn't the problem. The problem is when disagreement turns to fear, and fear turns to violence. The empathic resonators help us remember that our opponents are people too, with hopes and fears just like our own. The first test came sooner than anyone expected. A distress signal reached the Council from the edge of known space, a region that explorers called the Silent Zone because ships that went there rarely returned. "We're picking up refugee ships," reported the communication officer. "Dozens of them, fleeing something at the Galactic Rim." On the main screen, images appeared, of vessels in desperate condition. They were clearly alien, but not from any known species. The ships were organic-looking, as if they had been grown rather than built. "They're requesting asylum," the officer continued. "They say their homeworld has been consumed." A chill ran through the chamber. Every representative knew what that word meant in the context of galactic history. Grand Admiral Yun Wu's expression grew grim. How long since the reality anchor failed? Teho, now serving as the Council's historical advisor, consulted his records. Approximately 6 months, the same time we revealed ourselves to the galaxy. "It's not a coincidence," Mi Young said quietly. "The Devourers are free, and they're hungry." Within hours, a rescue fleet was assembled. Unlike the old days when each species would send their own ships, the new fleet was integrated from the beginning. Human vessels with their reality-bending technology worked alongside Valerian warships, Zephyrian swarm fighters, and Altarian crystal carriers. Captain Nari commanded the lead ship, a hybrid vessel that combined the best technology from all member species. Her crew was equally mixed, humans working side by side with beings they had once hidden from. "Approaching the refugee fleet now," she reported. "I'm seeing... my God." On the main screen, the rescue fleet could see what the refugees were running from. Space itself looked wrong, twisted into shapes that hurt to look at directly. Stars flickered and died as something vast and hungry moved between them. "The Devourers," whispered Lieutenant Commander Veltar, his insect features trembling. "They're real." "Real. And angry," Nari confirmed. "They've been locked away for 3,000 years. I imagine they have quite an appetite." She opened communications to the refugee ships. "This is Captain Nari of the United Galactic Defense Force. We're here to help." A new voice came over the channel, speaking in a language that the ship's computers couldn't translate. But the empathic resonators picked up the emotions behind the words: gratitude, desperation, and bone-deep terror. "They call themselves the Woven," reported the translation AI after a few moments. "Their species weaves matter and energy together to create their technology. The Devourers attacked their homeworld 3 days ago." "How many survivors?" Nari asked. "Fewer than 1 million, out of a population of 12 billion. The number hit the rescue fleet like a physical blow. 12 billion beings consumed in 3 days. "All ships," Nari ordered, "begin evacuation procedures. Get every survivor aboard." "Captain," called her science officer, "I'm detecting Devourer scout ships moving this way. They're following the refugees." On the sensors, dark shapes appeared at the edge of detection. They moved like living shadows, and their very presence seemed to make nearby stars dim. "Can we fight them?" asked Lieutenant Commander Veltar. Nari looked at her mixed crew of humans and aliens. "Not the way our ancestors did. They fought alone, in secret, carrying the weight of the galaxy's survival by themselves." She opened a channel to all ships in the fleet. "This is Captain Nari to all vessels. We have contact with Devourer scouts. We could run, abandon the refugees, and maybe escape, or we can do something our species have never done before." "What's that?" asked Commander Thokval from the Valerian destroyer. "We can stand together." The empathic resonators activated across the fleet. Suddenly, every being on every ship could feel what the others felt. Human determination mixed with Valerian honor. Zephyrian unity combined with Altarian wisdom. Aquilan. Courage joined with the desperate hope of the woven refugees. "All ships," Nari announced, Prepare for engagement. But remember, we're not just fighting for ourselves, we're fighting for the idea that different species can become something greater together. The Devourer scouts emerged from the darkness, expecting to find the usual chaos of species, fighting among themselves while the refugees died. Instead, they found something new, a fleet that moved as one mind while maintaining the strengths of many different peoples. The battle was brief, but decisive. The scouts were destroyed not by superior firepower, but by tactics they couldn't understand. Ships that should have been enemies working together in perfect harmony. Back at the new council chambers, Tejo stood before the memorial wall. It was covered with symbols from every known species, representing all those who had been lost to various conflicts over the millennia. As he watched, new symbols appeared, representations of the Woven who had died in the latest Devourer attack. So Young joined him at the memorial. The refugee fleet is safe. We're setting up temporary colonies for the Woven survivors. And the Devourers? Still out there. But now we know they're coming, and we're ready. Tejo nodded slowly. This time will be different. How can you be sure? He gestured to the activity around them. Beings from dozens of species work together on everything from refugee aid to defense planning. The old divisions based on fear, and competition had given way to cooperation based on understanding, because this time, we're not facing them as individual species fighting separately. We're facing them as one galaxy, united by choice rather than conquered by force. Will it be enough? Tejo smiled, and for a moment he looked like the ancient guardian he truly was. When I was young, my people believed that strength came from being the toughest, the smartest, the most advanced. We learned the hard way that real strength comes from lifting others up. He pointed to the memorial wall, where the symbols of the lost were now surrounded by symbols representing hope, unity, and the promise of better tomorrows. The Devourers consume everything they touch. But they can't consume what we've built here. They can't eat Hop.